From where we last left off, we talked about the economic and political state of Germany after the First World War, the rise of Adolf Hitler into power, being a dictator for the now Nazi Germany. The MV Wilhelm Gustloff construction was started on August 1st, 1936, named after the Nazi politician Mr. Wilhelm Gustloff, with her keel laying, and was launched on May 5th, 1937 and completed nearly a year later. She would also complete her unofficial maiden voyage, to which carried Austrians convinced to vote for the annexation of Austria by Germany.
So after her third voyage under the command of Karl Liebig, the Wilhelm Gustloff actually left Hamburg to join some KDF ships called Der Deutsche Oceana and Sierra Cordahaba. I apologize if I actually did butcher that name, on a group cruise to the North Sea. So a few days later, a massive storm actually generated winds up to 62 miles per hour that actually forced all the ships apart, and
The ship you see in this photo is the Pegaway, a coal freighter that departed the Tyne for Hamburg, who was also caught up in the storm as well. The ship is actually taken on water and actually started to sink.
so Captain G.W. Ward, the captain of the Pegaway, issued a SOS northwest off the island of Trichelig at 4 a.m. And I apologize if I do butcher that name, was off the coast of the Netherlands. The Wilhelm Gustloff is the closest one and actually answered that distress call and arrived at 6 a.m. and lowered an emergency lifeboat with a crew of 12 people. The oar-powered lifeboat couldn't actually handle the rough waves of the heavy seas, so Lifeboat 6 with a crew of 10 under the command of Second Officer Schurman, was lowered. Since it actually did have a motor, it handled the waves pretty well though. So after assisting the shipmates in Lifeboat 1 to head back, Sherman was able to reach the Pegaway and rescue the 19 men that actually did jump into the sea. At 7:45, the Dutch tugboat arrived, but it couldn't actually save the Pegaway in time, to which actually rolled over to port and sank.
In 1938, the Wilhelm Gustloff, under the command of Captain Liebig, departed Hamburg for England, where she was anchored offshore from Tilbury as to remain in international waters. This allowed her to act as a floating polling station for German and Austrian citizens who were living in England at the time to vote on the approaching referendum on Germany's unification with Austria. 1,172 registered German voters and 806 registered Austrian voters were ferried between the docks at Tilbury to the ship, where 1,968 votes were casted in favor of the Union and 10 were against. Wilhelm Gustloff left to return to Hamburg on April 12th. The ship would undertake a voyage on 14th to 19th of April 1938, as the ship went on an Easter voyage before her actual maiden voyage, which was from 21st of April to May 6th of 1938, joining Der Deutsche Oceana and Sierra Cordaba on a group cruise to the Madeira Islands. Second day into the voyage, Captain Liebig died due to a heart attack on the bridge of the ship, and he would be replaced by Friedrich Petersen, who took on the Wilhelm Gustloff for the remainder of the cruise.
And for Captain Friedrich Petersen, don't worry, he will return later into the story, so we're not actually leaving him out entirely yet. So from March 14th, 1938 until August 26th of 1939, the Wilhelm Gustloff took over 80,000 passengers on a total of 60 voyages all around Europe. But on September 1st, 1939, the world will be plunged into a second world war. This global conflict felt around the world.
On September 1st, 1939, it happened. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany invaded Poland, launching a blitzkrieg, and Europe is on the brink of catastrophe in one of the greatest and deadliest conflicts on a massive scale, World War II. 2 decades earlier, World War I left an entire generation scarred, nations broken, and empires destroyed. Nothing prepared humanity for what's about to come. The invasion of Poland shattered the peace that was maintained by the Treaty of Versailles, and within days, Great Britain and France declared war on Germany, setting the stage for a massive global conflict that spread across the globe like a wildfire of blood, casualties, and total devastation and destruction of human lives. In its heart, World War II is a clash of ideologies, a struggle between democracy and fascism, between freedom and oppression. Adolf Hitler violated international treaties by rebuilding his military, annexed neighboring territories, and the invasion of Poland was the straw that broke the camel's back. Hitler would stop at nothing to dominate Europe. Right away, the Wilhelm Gustloff was requisitioned to be a hospital ship designated as Lazarettschiff D.
So a hospital ship is actually a type of ship that actually functions and cares for the wounded troops. Now, during the First and Second World Wars, they were used on a huge, massive scale as many passenger liners were actually requisitioned and converted into hospital ships. And some of my well-known favorites are the HMHS Mauritania or the HMHS Aquitania. And my personal favorite, too, which is actually back behind me, if y'all actually didn't notice this, I actually got this mounted on my wall a couple of weeks ago, the HMHS Britannic, which was lost on November 21st, 1916 after striking a mine in the Aegean Sea. So, hospital ships are actually protected under the Geneva Convention and the Hague Convention, but under the Hague Convention Acts of 1907, articles of the Hague specify provisions for a hospital ship, and I'm actually going to list these. Number one, it must be painted all white. Military must have a green band, and I actually never know about this when I looked at the Britannic. Ships operated by approved relief societies and similar must have a red band all across. And the ships must and number two, ships must fly a Red Cross flag in addition to their national flag. For example, Britannic behind me would fly the United Kingdom flag along with the Aquitania and the Mauritania. The U.S. naval ships Comfort and Mercy would fly the U.S. flag, and the Wilhelm Gustloff would actually fly the German flag, and so on and so forth. And number three, ships must give medical assistance to wounded personnel of all nationalities. So it really doesn't matter, whose side is on. In one case is basically a Britannic taking on an Austrian soldier. Number four, not to be used for any purpose or to interfere or hamper enemy combatant vessels. That's actually a huge no-no for a hospital ship. Number five is basically enemy forces can search hospital ships to investigate possible violations of any of the mentioned restrictions. And also, number six, this is actually a big one, to which in my notes I actually typed it in all caps for this one. Under no circumstances a hospital ship should be attacked for any reason, and there's only two people that I'm actually talking to on this one is Gustav Sees and Helmut Patzig. So, in further context, even though hospital ships are actually protected under the laws, a hospital ship that's actually caught violating legal restrictions must be warned and be given a reasonable time to comply. Failure to comply means they could be fired upon these reasons. Number one is diversion or capture is not feasible. Number two is no other method to exercise control. Number three would be violations are grave to allow the ship to be classified as a military vessel. And number four, damage and casualties will not be disproportionate.
Marked hospital vessels display large red crosses to signify their protection. Even so, marked vessels has not been free of an attack. Here's some notable examples that we're going to include in this one. HMHS Landovery Castle, which was sunk by SMU-86 on June 27, 1918. This U-boat actually went as far as running down all the lifeboats and gunned down the survivors. The Soviet ship Armenia, which was sank by HE-111 torpedo bombers on November 7th, 1941. Now, this one is a justifiable attack due to her light anti-aircraft armaments, which actually jeopardized her status, so this one is 100% justified. AHS Centaur, which was sunk by a Japanese submarine off the coast of Queensland, and the suspected submarine was I-77.
Afterwards, the Wilhelm Gustloff actually served as a barracks ship for 1,000 U-boat trainees of the 2nd Submarine Training Division, to which she would sit for 4 years. During those 4 years, she would train them. Now, the 2nd Training Division, little I know about this, they would actually be used as extras in an anti-British propaganda film called Titanic, to which would be released in 1943. Now, interestingly enough, the SS Cap Arcona was actually used as stand-in for the ill-fated liner itself.
The film was commissioned by Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels with the intention of showing not only the superiority of German filmmaking, but also as a propaganda vehicle that would depict the British and American capitalism being responsible for the disaster. The director, Herbert Selpin, was arrested during production after making comments about the German army and the war. He was denounced for the remarks and failing to retract his statements during a meeting with Mr. Goebbels. He was arrested, but he was found hanged in prison. A rumor circulated that the murder was under orders of Goebbels, as the Gestapo has taken an interest in the matter. Afterwards, the film was completed by Werner Klinger, who was not credited, and the film itself costed 4 million Reichmarks. Goebbels was worried that the ship's disaster would demoralize the German public, and interestingly enough, four of those clips from the movie wound up to appear in the 1958 film A Night to Remember.
And it wouldn't be long that the Soviet Red Army would actually start advancing towards Germany, especially after the failed invasion of Stalingrad by Germany. Stalingrad was actually a decisive turning point in this war. It also marked the beginning of the longest German retreat. Adolf Hitler did oppose evacuating troops and civilians from the German occupied towns, but however, what's been going on behind the scenes, behind Hitler's back, was all done in secret and quietly that he wouldn't even find out.
In the next part to the Wilhelm Gustloff documentary, we will go over Operation Hannibal and another predator that is actually going to be introduced into the story of the Wilhelm Gustloff sinking S 13.